ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So it's time to update you on my Peninsula tank. But before we do that, if you want to help support the channel and pick up some SPS frags, please visit reefbum.com. And with that, let's get into the video. So it's been about 15 months since I first started adding some SPS frags to this tank back here. And I don't know, most of the frags were probably added about a year ago, last June. So, I mean, overall, I'm just thrilled with the results of this tank. Everything is just doing fantastic, growing really fast. You know, the corals on the bottom of the tank were mainly colonies that I had in my 187 gallon system tank. I needed to make some room in those tanks. So I pretty much, out of necessity, put some of the colonies on the bottom of this bare bottom tank. The ORA Hawkins is one of them. I've got a couple of Montipora, the Sunset Montipora, the Superman Montipora, the Mystic Sunset Montipora. Those are all doing great. They're actually spreading on the bare bottom of the tank. The other coral that I brought in from my other system is a Jackson's Rainbow Tenuous. And that coral, after a couple of months, it was an adjustment period because I've got the GHL Mitras on this tank, the LEDs, which I am thrilled about because I'm just getting great growth in colors with those lights. So that's certainly a part of, I think, the success with this tank is the Mitras. But the Jackson's Rainbow Tenuous was only getting about 200 to 250 par in my frag tank on the other system under the Halides. And under the Mitras here, it's getting about 350 par on the bottom. And the reds and the pinks are really coming out. So it's a pretty happy camper in the Peninsula tank here. Other corals from my 187 gallon tank that I put into this tank, I used, put a big chunk of the Cali Tort at the end of the tank on top of my orange cap. It's actually a Worldwide Corals grafted cap that really is not, the graft is not spreading, so it's primarily an orange cap, but it's a great spot for the Cali Tort, a huge chunk of that Cali Tort. It's a gorgeous coral, just purplish blue. I love solid colored corals, but it's a great location for it because that coral is aggressive, it grows fast. There's a lot of room for it to grow. I'm not really too concerned about it shading out the orange cap, so I'm really happy about that. I also have a Jason Fox bug out stylo on the bottom of this tank. What else do I have? I have a actual just radiating, glowing, what I call a kryptonite tenuous. It's a super green, and that thing just grows like a weed in the middle of this tank. Yeah, so I'm trying to, you know, add some new corals that I haven't had before, including the PC Rainbow. Gorgeous red coloration in this coral. It's growing really fast for me. I've got a TSA Bill Murray. It's a table that's growing out. The Battle Corals Joker 2.0, such a cool coral. Very deep purple with the, I guess, yellowish tips on it. I've got a Worldwide Corals Cookie Monster that's growing super fast. In fact, it's crowding out my Walt Disney frag that I put into the tank a long time ago. The Jason Fox Homewrecker, the coloration on this coral under the LEDs, and I'm using like a full spectrum almost for the GHL Mitras. It's a spectrum, I've talked about this before, that mimics 400 watt 20K halides. So it's not a really blue look. I don't really like the blue look. So this Homewrecker frag, again, I think it's because of the par. There's much higher par, you know, 350 at the bottom up to 500 near the top in this tank. The Homewrecker is about in the middle. So I'm getting, I think, much better coloration on that coral in this tank under the Mitras versus the halides. But I'm just in love with the Mitras. I really, well, I guess I never thought I would say that. I've mentioned this before, but yeah, I've spent so much time with the halides and had a lot of luck with the halides. I never thought I would be saying this about LEDs, but they can grow corals and they can color up corals. You know, I mean, at least that's a part of it, right? The other part, I think a big part of it is having a high pH. I've got a very high elevated pH in this tank, which I maintain because I'm dosing a lot of kalkwasser. My pH ranges 8.4 is a low to 8.5. Sometimes it hits 8.6. I'm not thrilled with that. Usually I try to limit it at 8.5. But yeah, so I've got that elevated pH, dosing all that kalkwasser. The calcium reactor kind of supplements the kalkwasser, but that kalkwasser is my main method in terms of calcium and alkalinity supplementation. A couple other things that are going on with this tank. I've started to dose some Captivate aquaculture trace elements. I'm actually doing that as well in the 187 gallon system. I have seen some improved coloration, I do believe. I'll do a more in-depth video on that once I can kind of make greater conclusions or more detailed conclusions about the use of the trace elements. So yeah, I mean, overall, the you know, there's just a couple of minor issues with the tank. I'm still getting the bubble algae. I don't really care too much about the bubble algae. It doesn't bother me that much. You know, I burst the big bubble algae pieces that I find. So the other thing is that I do have some vermitid snails in this tank. You know, again, it's not something that I'm trying to like actively defeat in terms of that pest. Maybe I'll get the bumblebee snails. From what I understand, they can help, I guess, cull back the vermitids. But I don't know, in terms of the coloration and the growth that I'm getting with this tank and for these corals, even with the vermitid snails, there doesn't seem to be slowing them down too much. So yeah, I'm really happy about the progress of this tank, and it's good that this tank is starting to look mature, because my other 187 gallon tank is looking pretty bare since I've pulled out all the acros in that tank. I've got a lot of pieces in here that have really grown very, very you know, well. I'm going to start fragging those pieces, including that Joker 2.0. It's such a cool coral. I've got a couple of other corals from ACI. The ACI Cherry Pie Millie, it's one of my favorites. I've got an ACI Spathulata that has grown really, really fast in this tank. There's also another Reef Raft Unknown. It's like a table-like coral that is just doing very, very well. Probably have to start fragging that pretty soon. I picked up a frag of the Tyree Pink Lemonade, one of my favorite old school corals. So that is doing well too. I've got a Worldwide Corals Blueberry Fields coral. It's a bonsai coral. I love bonsai. That's doing really, really well. A Rocky Mountain Frags Breakout Your Wallet Millie, I believe that's the name. It's starting to really take off. So yeah, I've got a lot of corals that I'm really digging. I also have a Paletta Pink Tip that's so neat, and it's starting to sprout many more branches. Another old school coral that's really starting to do very well and starting to take off is a Palmer's Blue Millie. Love Millies. Also have a Aqua ST Rainbow Millie, and that is really, really doing well and starting to grow some more branches. What else do I have that I can talk about? I've got this really cool pink Millies. I really, really love pink Millies from Battle Corals. I forget the name. I'll have to look it up. That is really growing aggressively. So that'll do it for an update on the Peninsula tank. Be safe, be well, and I will see you next time.
We'll be right back.